3 years ago, my partner and I bought our very first home. It was a modest little place, and the neighborhood was incredibly peaceful. Our neighbors on both sides were wonderful, friendly people, and life was honestly so good. We felt like we had found our perfect little slice of heaven. In fact, things were going so well that about 18 months later, when those exact same neighbors next door decided to sell their house, we saw an opportunity we couldn't pass up. Their house was significantly larger than ours, and it came with several luxuries we had been dreaming of, including a long private driveway, a spacious garage, and a beautiful deep bathtub to relax in after a long day of work. We jumped at the chance, bought their house, and immediately put our old, smaller house right next door up for sale. Since it was a nice neighborhood, we received several motivation letters from potential buyers who wanted to move in. After reading through them all carefully, we ended up choosing a Polish couple. When we met them, they only spoke to us in English, not in Dutch like we did, which was a little unusual but perfectly fine. They seemed nice enough, asking us for some practical tips about the house, and we had some pleasant, light-hearted small talk during the handover. But looking back at it now, that peaceful interaction was just the calm before a massive storm. Even before the major incidents began, something about the whole situation just felt off. We started experiencing bizarre disturbances at the strangest hours of the night. Sometimes, right around midnight, we would hear heavy, aggressive banging or incredibly loud music blasting through the shared walls without any warning. It was not a constant everyday occurrence, but it happened often enough to make us feel deeply uneasy. It felt like we did not truly know who was living just a few feet away from us. The first major red flag appeared when the neighbor came home one day with severe damage to both sides of his car. The vehicle was completely mangled, looking as though he had scraped against a metal guardrail at high speed on both the left and right sides. When we politely asked him what had happened, he gave us an incredibly clumsy and unconvincing excuse. He claimed that he had hit a concrete pole on one side of the car, and then, on a completely different occasion, a trailer had taken a turn too wide and scraped the other side. We chose to believe him at the time, even though the math simply did not add up, and the damage looked way too identical on both sides. Then, one evening around 6 in the evening, the neighbor called us in a state of total panic. He was screaming through the phone, claiming that there were strange people outside his house turning his security cameras away. He begged us to check outside and call the police immediately. We looked out our window, and sure enough, we saw 2 men actively breaking into his home. We called the police right away, but the problem was that it took the officers 20 minutes to arrive at the scene. By the time they got there, the burglars were already long gone. As the police were investigating, the neighbor's wife came racing into the street in her car, parked frantically, and ran inside the house to check on her sweet little French bulldog and speak with the officers. I decided to walk my own dog around the block, out of curiosity to see what was happening. As I was walking, I saw the husband park his own car 3 streets away and casually walk toward the crime scene on foot, almost as if he was intentionally hiding his vehicle from the police, who were currently at his house. The thought of how suspicious that was did not fully register with me in that moment, but it would make sense later. A few days later, we checked our own doorbell camera footage from that evening. What we saw made our blood run cold. Before the break-in even occurred, the 2 burglars were standing right on our porch, calmly discussing in Polish which of the 2 houses they should target. In the end, nothing was actually stolen from the neighbor's house, and no one was caught. I told the police that the entire incident felt like a coordinated setup, but I never heard back from them. Fast forward to a week later, I was attending a housewarming party when my partner sent me a text message. He said the music next door was blasting incredibly loud again. A few minutes later he called me, and his entire tone had changed from annoyance to pure, unadulterated terror. He told me that the neighbor's car had just come tearing through our front garden, completely destroying our lawn, and had slammed directly into the neighbor's own front door. 2 men were frantically loading the vehicle with high-end electronics, including flat-screen televisions, professional audio speakers, and other expensive gear. They looked exactly like the same two men from the break-in the week before. This time, the police were a lot quicker. They arrived in exactly 7 minutes and managed to intercept the men while they were still in the middle of loading up the car. When the officers asked them for identification, the men claimed they did not have any on them, and then things got completely surreal. The man behind the wheel looked the police officer dead in the eye and claimed to be my neighbor, using my neighbor's actual legal name. But there was a major catch. In the 9 months that they had lived next door to us, my actual neighbor had never spoken a single word of Dutch to us. This man, however, spoke fluent Dutch with a thick Polish accent. Realizing that the game was up, the criminals slammed the car into gear, and a violent, chaotic pursuit followed through our quiet suburban streets. It did not last long, as the police managed to box them in and arrest them. But back at the house, my partner could still hear movement coming from inside our neighbor's home. He alerted the police, who went back inside and dragged out a third suspect who had been hiding. As my partner and I were inside our own home, with an officer to report the extensive property damage to our front garden, our doorbell suddenly rang. We turned around, and there he was. It was the actual neighbor, but he was completely unrecognizable. His face was a swollen, bloody mess. One of his eyes was swollen completely shut, his mouth was torn open, and his arm hung at a useless broken angle, covered in what looked like deep defensive stab wounds. He looked completely feral, aggressive, and broken. The police officer tried to intervene and help him, but the neighbor flatly refused to file a report or cooperate with the investigation in any way. Since the victim of the assault refused to speak, the officer had no legal choice but to send him back to his house. Later that night, the neighbor rang our doorbell again. He was trembling violently. He confessed to us that he had been cheating on his wife, and he claimed that she was the one who had sent these men to take him out. He begged us to let him sleep at our house for the night. Terrified and wanting absolutely no part in this dangerous underworld drama, we refused to let him inside. My partner, however, offered to drive him to the hospital so he could get medical attention. We dropped him off at the emergency room at around 10:30 in the evening, telling him that we were going to stay somewhere else for the night because we no longer felt safe in our own home. But the truth was, we did not stay elsewhere. We went straight back to our house, locked every single door, turned off all the lights, and tried to breathe. At around 1 in the morning, our dog suddenly started growling. It was a specific, low, menacing growl that he only uses when someone is standing directly at our front door. We nervously checked our live doorbell camera feed, and there he was. The neighbor was back from the hospital. He was standing on our dark porch, repeatedly pressing the doorbell in the middle of the night. We sat in the pitch black of our living room, watching the glowing screen in complete silence, terrified to make a sound. Then, after what felt like an absolute eternity, a car turned onto our street. The moment the neighbor saw the headlights, he panicked. He scrambled off our porch and hid behind our parked cars in the driveway, crouching low in the shadows. Watching this bloodied, broken man lurking in the dark behind our own vehicles was one of the most unsettling things I have ever witnessed in my life. The car stopped in front of the house, and a woman got out. It was his wife. She walked slowly toward her front door, paused, and glanced over at our driveway. She saw him hiding there. We held our breath, waiting for a violent confrontation or something even worse to happen. Instead, she walked toward him, and as she stepped into the pale yellow glow of the street lamp, she began to wail. It was a haunting, guttural, heartbroken crying that echoed through the empty, silent street. The husband did not say a single word. She kept asking him questions, her sobbing getting louder and louder. Eventually, they both got into her car and drove away into the night. We did not see either of them again for 3 days. We did not even know where their little dog was during that time. Eventually, the wife returned to the house completely alone. She found the dog locked inside, and when she saw us, she told us that she did not think she would ever see her husband again. Whatever the real story was behind all of this, whether it was drugs, unpaid debts, or a marriage that had turned completely lethal, I realized one thing: I do not think I ever want to know the truth. Now, Our next story takes us back to the year 2017, when I moved into a new house in a quiet, peaceful suburb of Montreal, Canada, along with my parents and my little sister. Before I get into the incredibly creepy part of this story, I need to explain a few unique details about my bedroom and how it was positioned in the house, because this layout is crucial for understanding how everything looked from my point of view. The house we moved into was a split-level home, which means it had staggered floor levels connected by very short flights of stairs. My bedroom was located in a very specific spot. It was neither on the main upper floor nor was it down in the basement. Instead, it sat exactly in between the two levels, right at ground level. One wall of my bedroom shared space directly with the garage, and the opposite wall had a very large window that looked straight out into our dark backyard. At the time, that window was covered by old plastic vertical blinds that were missing several panels. Because of those missing panels, even when the blinds were fully closed, there were always gaps where I could still easily see outside into the yard. On the garage side of my room was my closet, which featured large sliding mirror doors. This meant that whenever I was lying in my bed, no matter which side I turned to face, I could always see the reflection of my backyard window staring back at me in the mirror. I first started noticing that something was wrong about a year after we moved into the house, when I was 15 years old. I had terrible insomnia, so I would routinely stay up late at night watching YouTube videos on my tablet to help me fall asleep. One night, as I was lying there in the dark, I heard a strange sound coming from directly outside my bedroom window. I had left the window open a few inches because it was an incredibly hot summer night, and we had not bought an air conditioning unit yet, so I had to rely on whatever breeze I could get. After hearing what sounded like distinct footsteps and shuffling in the grass right outside, I quickly paused my video and put my tablet down to listen. The moment I paused the video, the noise stopped. This made me think that it had probably just been a sound effect from the video I was watching, or maybe just my overactive imagination playing tricks on me. I resumed the video, and a few seconds later, I heard the shuffling noise again. I turned my head to the left and stared directly toward the window, but I could not see anything through the darkness. Eventually, I fell asleep. For the next few nights, everything was completely quiet. But then, a couple of nights later, during my usual late-night routine, I heard that unmistakable shuffling noise once again. I paused my video and listened intently, holding my breath. This time, I listened for much longer than before, and I swear I could hear the faint, steady sound of deep breathing coming from right side the screen. I glanced over at the window, but again I could not see anything. I tried to convince myself that it was just my mind playing tricks on me, so I rolled over to face my closet instead. As I picked my tablet back up to resume the video, my eyes caught the reflection in the sliding mirror doors of my closet. Through the gaps in the vertical blinds reflected in the mirror, I saw something move. A cold chill ran straight down my spine. I got out of bed immediately, ran upstairs, and woke up my parents. I decided that it was much better to be safe than sorry. I told them exactly what I had seen and heard. My dad clearly doubted my story, but he grabbed a flashlight and went outside into the dark backyard to investigate. A few minutes later, he came back inside and told me that he had searched every single corner of the yard and found absolutely nothing. He explained to me that if someone had actually been out there, he would have heard them opening our squeaky metal gate, or at the very least, he would have heard them running away. He also checked our Ring camera, which showed no motion whatsoever around the front or sides of the house. I suggested to him that the intruder could have easily jumped over our wooden fence into the neighbor's backyard. But my dad quickly shut that theory down. He told me that we lived in an incredibly safe neighborhood and that I simply needed to stop watching so many scary movies. I wanted to believe him, so I went back to my room and tried to sleep. Over the next several months, every couple of weeks or so, I would hear those same unsettling noises outside my window. But each time, I would force myself to believe that it was all in my head. I would focus on my videos and try to fall asleep as quickly as possible. When the freezing Canadian winter finally came, and the entire backyard was covered in deep snow, the noises stopped completely, and I eventually forgot all about it. But the following spring, it started all over again. It did not happen every single night, maybe only once or twice a month at most, and it was always past 11 o'clock at night. I did my best to ignore it, even when the sounds were unmistakably the sound of heavy footsteps or deep, slow breathing right outside the glass. I watched a lot of horror movies, so I kept telling myself that my brain was just being paranoid. I stopped looking at the window entirely, and I avoided looking at the closet mirror too, because deep down, a part of me was absolutely terrified of being proven right. Then, one night, against my better judgment, I decided to look. I was too scared to look directly at the window, so I looked at the reflection in the mirror instead. And this time, I swear I saw the distinct silhouette of a person standing perfectly still right outside the glass, peering in through the gaps. I ran upstairs to my parents again, and once again, my dad checked the entire yard, found nothing, and told me the exact same thing he had told me the year before. And once again, because I desperately wanted to feel safe, I believed him. This terrifying cycle went on for a long time. I started going to bed much earlier, watching my videos with headphones on at maximum volume, and completely avoiding looking at my window or my mirror. The sounds would always stop when the weather got cold, and they would start up again in the middle of spring. Then came a night in early December of 2021. There was a massive, violent windstorm howling outside. I was staying up late, watching a live stream with my boyfriend over Discord, when I decided to go up to the kitchen to grab a glass of water around 11:30 at night. On my way, I noticed both of my parents sitting on the couch in the living room. This caught me completely off guard, because they almost never stayed up that late, especially outside of their bedroom. Their faces looked incredibly tense, worried, and preoccupied. I asked them if everything was okay, but they quickly brushed it off and assured me that it was nothing to worry about. I assumed that I had simply walked in on a private adult conversation, so I turned around to head back down the stairs to my bedroom. But as I did, bright flashes of red and blue light caught my attention through the front living room window. A police car was pulling directly into our driveway. My parents immediately stood up as if they had been expecting this, and they rushed me back down to my room, telling me they would call me if they needed me. I wanted answers, but I knew it was not the right time to push them. I sat in my room, my curiosity and anxiety eating away at me. Not even 2 minutes later, my dad called me back upstairs. This time, they did not keep me in the dark. My dad sat me down and explained that about 20 minutes earlier, during the height of the windstorm, he had stepped out into the backyard to make sure none of our patio furniture had been blown over. As he was scanning the dark yard, he noticed the light from my bedroom window, illuminating something standing right next to it. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he realized with horror that it was a grown man, standing completely motionless, staring directly through the gaps in my blinds into my bedroom. My dad immediately screamed at the man and started running toward him. The man spun around, ran to the back fence, and jumped over it effortlessly, as if he had done it 100 times before, disappearing into the neighboring yards. In that single moment, everything I had feared for years stopped being a terrifying possibility and became a cold, hard fact. I had not imagined any of it. Someone really had been standing outside my window, watching me in the dark for years. My terrified parents had called the police right away, and then they went to knock on our back neighbor's door to warn her that a prowler was loose in the area. But the older woman who lived there did not open the door. Instead, she yelled at my parents through the closed door, screaming at them to get off her property, or she would call the police on them. When the police officers arrived at our house, there was not much they could do because my dad had not gotten a clear look at the man's face in the dark. They promised to increase patrols in our neighborhood and strongly recommended that we install high-quality security cameras, which we did the very next day. In retrospect, the reaction of our back neighbor still feels incredibly suspicious to me. Why was her very first response to threaten my parents when they were just trying to warn her about a stalker? It raises so many disturbing questions. Was she living with the man my dad saw? Had she seen him out there before and genuinely thought it was him knocking on her door? Did I actually know the person who had been standing outside my window all those years? Or was it just some creepy neighbor who noticed a young girl's bedroom window with poorly covered blinds and decided to take advantage of it? Did he only want to watch me, or was he slowly working up the courage to do something much worse? Even now, those unanswered questions haunt me. Knowing that someone was actually there the entire time makes every single sound I brushed off, every deep breath I thought I imagined, and every dark silhouette I forced myself not to look at feel so much more terrifying. I have since switched bedrooms, and to this day, I cannot look at any window facing our backyard the same way. Thankfully, my new bedroom window faces the busy street. What scares me the most is not just that it happened, but how long it went on without anyone believing me, and how easily it could have kept going. Our final story today takes us to a quiet suburban area of Alberta, Canada, during a freezing cold winter. I was 15 years old, and at the time, I was living in a small, cramped apartment with my parents. We were rapidly running out of living space, and with my new baby sister on the way, we knew we desperately needed to find a bigger home as quickly as possible. It seemed like incredibly good luck when we found a house just a few blocks down the road that was selling for an unbelievably cheap price. Granted, it was not the best-looking house on the block, and it was not located in the greatest neighborhood, but it had plenty of room for our growing family. And for the low price we paid, we figured we could easily renovate the place to our heart's content with the money we saved. My dad did some minor renovations with our remaining budget, focusing mainly on the basement because it was completely unusable in its original state. He spent weeks cleaning it, installing new carpeting, putting in sturdy structural beams, fixing up the basement bathroom, and putting up fresh wallpaper. He even let me choose a cool patterned wallpaper for the basement bedroom, which was going to be my new room. For the first couple of months, living in the new house was absolutely wonderful, and I was really enjoying having so much extra space. But then, the very first questionable event occurred. It was my father's birthday, and to celebrate, our entire family had gone out to a nice restaurant for dinner in the evening. Everything went perfectly until we drove back up to our house and noticed that our front door was standing wide open. My mom was absolutely shaken to her core, and she begged my dad to drive us away from the house immediately while she called the police. My dad, however, was furious. He reached into his toolbox in the back of his truck, grabbed a massive, heavy metal wrench, and marched inside the dark house to search for the intruder himself. My mom and I called the police anyway, and we sat in the car for 5 excruciatingly long minutes before the patrol cars finally arrived. The police officers searched the house and found my dad inside. When they came back out, they told us that nothing had actually been stolen, and there was no sign of any intruder left in the house. However, some of our personal belongings had clearly been moved around or knocked over. Strangely, the books on my bedroom bookshelf down in the basement had been completely rearranged and knocked to the floor. The police finished their report and left, and though we were still incredibly paranoid, we finally went back inside to sleep. From that terrifying day forward, I started hearing strange, unsettling noises coming from inside the walls of the house, and sometimes from directly underneath our basement floor. My bedroom was down there in the basement, but I always dismissed the weird sounds as just the old water pipes rattling. It was an older house after all, and older houses make noise. That was until one night, when something completely unexplainable happened. It was around 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was secretly playing with my Nintendo DS under my bed sheets. I had the volume turned completely off, so my parents would not find out that I was still awake past my bedtime. And that is when I heard it. It was the clear, distinct sound of a person laughing, and the laughter was coming from directly inside the wall, right next to the side of my bed. My heart completely froze in my chest, and my eyes widened in the dark. I lay there, absolutely paralyzed with fear, not knowing what I should do. Should I ignore it? Should I scream for my parents? Should I get up and investigate the wall? I decided to lie perfectly still and wait to see if the laughter would happen again. After about 30 minutes of laying there as still as a stone, hear nothing but silence, I convinced myself that it must have just been my sleep-deprived imagination playing tricks on me. I eventually drifted off to sleep. The next morning, I woke up in my bed and everything seemed completely normal. Despite that creepy laugh still being burned into my mind, I tried my best to move on and ignore it. I would still hear those strange noises in the walls every now and then over the next couple of weeks, but I began to accept them as a normal part of living in that house. But then, the next major event occurred. By this time, my little sister had already been born. Because the basement bedroom was very large, and because my mom trusted me to keep an eye on her at night, my baby sister shared the room with me. To make sure she could hear the baby, my mom used a baby monitor system, keeping one parent receiver unit in the living room and another in the kitchen. One evening, my parents had gone out for a late-night dinner, leaving me home alone to take care of my baby sister until they got back. I was sitting in the living room upstairs, watching a movie, when I got up to go to the kitchen to grab a quick snack. As I walked into the kitchen, I suddenly noticed some very odd noises coming through the speaker of the baby monitor. My heart instantly sank. I knew for a fact that no one else was supposed to be home, but I could hear the clear sound of footsteps. They were loud, heavy footsteps walking around right next to the monitor down in my bedroom. Suddenly, my worst fears were realized when my baby sister started crying over the monitor. And then, through the speaker, I heard a faint, whispering shushing sound, followed by the loud sound of something crashing to the floor. I panicked. I did the very first thing that came to my mind, which, looking back on it now, was incredibly dangerous and could have easily gotten both me and my sister killed. I ran as fast as I could up to my parents' bedroom, reached into the closet, and grabbed my dad's hunting rifle. But the problem was that I did not have the key to unlock the trigger safety lock, and I had absolutely no ammunition for it. It was completely useless. But I figured I could at least pretend the gun was loaded, hide the lock with my hand, and if I was attacked, I would use the heavy wooden stock of the rifle to defend myself. All I cared about was getting my baby sister to safety. I ran to the basement door, opened it as quietly as possible, and crept down the dark stairs, pointing the rifle ahead of me. When I reached the bottom, I turned to face my sister's crib. The room was empty, but she was crying hysterically, and the baby monitor was lying sideways on the carpet. I mustered up every single ounce of courage I had, and yelled out into the darkness that I was armed, and that they needed to show themselves before I found them. There was no answer. I ran to the crib, scooped up my crying sister in one arm, and bolted back up the basement stairs. I slammed the basement door shut and wedged a heavy wooden chair tightly under the door handle to keep it locked before frantically calling my parents. They immediately called the police and drove home as fast as they possibly could. The police officers actually arrived at the house before my parents did. They made me sit in the back of a warm patrol car with my baby sister, while one of the officers went inside with his flashlight and gun drawn to search the house. When my parents finally arrived, I was crying, and I told them everything that had happened. They looked incredibly confused, but they were deeply concerned because they knew I was not the kind of kid who would ever make up a lie like this. The police officer eventually came back out of the house, gave us an all clear, and told us that there was absolutely no one inside. Just as the officers were finishing up their paperwork and getting ready to leave, my dad looked over at them with a worried expression. He asked them if they had checked the space behind my bedroom bookshelf down in the basement. I was completely confused. My bookshelf was built directly into the wall, so I had no idea why my dad would ask them to look behind it. The police officers looked confused too, and they asked my dad to come inside and show them exactly what he meant. We all walked down to the basement, and when we got to my room, I saw that my heavy bookshelf had been pushed open slightly, just like a secret door, and the basement window right next to my desk was wide open, with my desk chair positioned directly underneath it. My dad pushed the bookshelf all the way open, revealing a hidden, narrow crawl space that ran behind the basement walls, containing the house's main water and heating pipes. And there on the concrete floor of that hidden space, we saw the horrifying truth. Lying on the ground were empty food wrappers, one of our missing kitchen cups, a bottle of lotion, a sharp switchblade knife, and a fresh apple that had been partially eaten. Someone had been living inside the walls of our house, right next to my bed, this entire time. The police concluded that while we were sitting outside talking, the intruder must have escaped through the open basement window into the dark backyard. They told us to call them immediately if we noticed anything else suspicious, but they assured us that the person would likely never return now that their secret hiding spot had been discovered. But that was not even the most horrifying part of the discovery. A few days later, after the police had gone, I decided to go inside the hidden crawl space myself to explore it. As I was crawling along the dusty floor, I found a tiny hand-drilled hole in the drywall. When I pressed my eye up to that tiny hole, I realized with absolute horror that it looked directly into my bedroom, pointing straight at my bed and my dresser. Whoever had been living inside our walls had been using that tiny peephole to watch me sleep, watch me get dressed, watch me play my video games, and watch me live my life for months. They knew every single detail of my daily routine. I am an adult now, and I live in my own secure apartment with my boyfriend. My parents, however, still live in that exact same house 5 years later. To this day, I constantly worry about them, and I pray that whoever was hiding in those walls never decides to return. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of today's episode in the comments. And remember, we have a whole playlist of true crime episodes ready for you to binge right now. Until next time, see ya.